How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Mojo Grip. Mike here today, coming to you live from a different setup in the comfort of my house here. But I wanted to talk about a crash that happened sometime last year. So some of you may have read about this story. It's involving a pilot and a Piper M600. Someone actually sent me this article recently. I didn't know about it before, but I thought it was worth talking about. So the story goes, a pilot of a Piper M600 who is also the owner of the airplane. If you don't know a Piper M600, this is top of the line, a very sophisticated turboprop aircraft. It's about $3.4 million brand new if you bought no one today, and it's a very fast machine. So it's not generally a beginner's airplane, and I would never recommend that you jump into a Piper M600 as your first airplane, even if you can afford it. But that was exactly the case for this pilot, and I'm grateful that the crash that happened there was no casualties in terms of somebody dying. It was actually just a runway accident where the nose gear got knocked out. The pilot lost control during landing because of a crosswind. So nobody died, which is great, but also actually makes it more important that this doesn't happen again. I mentioned Piper M600, very sophisticated speed machine, and never will I recommend this to be your first airplane, but for this particular pilot, that was exactly the case, because this pilot only had 99 hours, 99. To give a better perspective, I recently just crossed 200 hours, and I've been flying for 5 years now. Actually, no, 6 years this year. It would have been 6 years that I started flying, right? And this pilot, brand new, has a total of 99 hours. Most of his hours in that Piper M600. So according to the NTSB report, he had about 54 hours in the Piper M600, and the rest of the 99 hours he had that in, guess what? A Cessna 172. I find that really funny because I've never heard of somebody jumping from a Cessna 172, which is really a trainer, a piston engine trainer, to a very sophisticated, more like a jet, the Piper M600. But that was the case here, where the pilot got their private pilot license and a Cessna 172, and then immediately jumped to flying a Piper M600. And in the case of this particular crash, this was the very first time that the pilot was flying solo without their instructor, which I guess also played a factor. Now, normally when you buy any airplane, it's safe to have training. As a matter of fact, most airplane manufacturers require some type of training, especially certified airplanes, even experimental. Like with our workshop and our dealership, Lookup Aviation, this is something that we require. The owner and pilot, whoever's going to fly and take ownership of that aircraft, needs to have proper training. Now, if you remember, or some of you may remember, what happened with Cirrus aircraft. Now, Cirrus is doing great now, but in the beginning, when the Cirrus SR-22 first came out, it was basically a high performance machine, but you had a lot of brand new pilots who can afford it flying this speed machine, and unfortunately there were a lot of deadly crashes from this SR-22 line of product. And a lot of older pilots or more traditional pilots are like, man, this machine is supposed to be modern, had all the safety equipment you could think about, it had a parachute, yet you had more pilots killing themselves in such a sophisticated machine. And part of that, I would say the biggest reason for those crashes, was simply training. And Cirrus realized this over the years, and now they are very keyed in on training their pilots on how to fly the airplane. And because of that, you've had Cirrus crashes go down significantly, even lower than industry average. Training is extremely important and highly recommended for any airplane. that you want to fly, especially a turboprop like an M600, that particular airplane actually require specific ratings, or if you are in, say, in the jet category, which I think this airplane can pass for. If you're flying any type of jet, whether single engine or twin engine, you need a type rating. And for an M600, although it's a single engine airplane, proper training is required. And it seems like this pilot was in the line of doing that. And this crash again happened on the day he decided to fly solo. And speaking of training, this pilot also did not have any additional rating. So this pilot was just rated a private pilot, which really gives you access to any single engine aircraft. But when you're speaking of an aircraft in the caliber of an M600, this is generally an instrument rated plane because it's a high altitude airplane, so you're likely to fly these things in instrument conditions. And this pilot did not have an instrument rating, and he decided to fly it. When I think of this particular pilot, I can think of a particular behavior, which I've talked about on this channel. One that comes to mind, anti-authority. Okay, now anti-authority is basically rules doesn't apply to me, because apparently for this pilot, now Piper, the manufacturer of the M600, when someone buys that airplane, they have a training program. But apparently this pilot did not go, or decided not to go for the training program. Instead, they sent somebody, a CFI, in their stead. And so the arrangement was the CFI will learn what they need to learn and then come teach them, which could work out. This could have worked out. And perhaps it was working out. But again, anti-authority is the rules doesn't apply to me. And the fact that he also decided to fly the airplane by himself, anti-authority. So you have all this risk layers just adding on top of each other. And then there's the issue of insurance. According to this article, the pilot also did not insure the aircraft. Now, this can go both ways. As a matter of fact, I'm not necessarily holding the pilot responsible for this, because honestly, given the current market since last year when the pandemic happened in 2020, insurance rates, they've been borderline extortion. So I can understand why a pilot would decide to self-insure, or someone who buys an expensive plane like this may self-insure. Now, the other side is chances are insurance companies probably would not even touch you or go anywhere near you if you only had 45 hours and wanted to jump into a turboprop. And that was the case for this pilot. A 45-hour pilot buys a brand new M600, and chances are insurance probably said no way. To give a proper perspective, you take a pilot like myself, I have about 200 hours and some change. To insure a smaller airplane or a less performer and a cheaper airplane, it still costs an arm and a leg. And that's me having more hours and more cross-country time and a cheaper haul value, which compared to an M600 costs about 10 times more a Sling TSI, and I still had high insurance rates. What I'm trying to say is that insurance is just high across the board. Now compare that to somebody who didn't even have enough rating or nearly enough hours. Chances are insurance companies probably would not even touch it, and I'm sure the pilot was like, screw it, I'll just self-insure. So again, another factor laden. Altogether, these are things that I would generally not recommend for anybody. No matter how deep your pockets are, no matter how excited you are to start flying. I personally take flying as a long-term thing. It's something you can do for as long as you want, or as long as you can pass the medical through the FAA. But take flying, if you get into this thing, take it as something that you want to do for a long time. And I know people who have been able to get into much faster airplanes quicker than some. Sometimes, we all have different learning curve, but what I strongly advise, and I'm making this video for anyone who is either starting their journey or perhaps you're in it now and you want to move to the next airplane and the next airplane. Please take your time and think of safety first. So if you're a brand new pilot, and by brand new I mean you have less than 100 hours and you train in a more forgiving airplane like a Cessna 172, please pace yourself. If you're going to jump into a quicker or more capable aircraft, don't jump into an M600. Jump into maybe a Sling TSI or even something that's a little bit more fast, a Cirrus SR20, a Cirrus SR22. These are airplanes that are a bit more capable, faster, better performance. My whole point is that you pace yourself and you're not just going 100 or 0 to 100 very quickly. You're crawling before you walk, and you take it stages by stages. You could fly a Cessna 172 for a few months to a year, and then graduate to maybe a Cirrus and fly that for a few months to a year. And then from there, you can walk your way up to a turboprop. It doesn't have to be an M600, but a turboprop, and basically get the proper training. The whole point I'm trying to make is that as a pilot, especially a low-time pilot, you are going to make mistakes. I don't care any pilot who tells you that they are perfect in their skills and how to fly an airplane. They're lying to you, because every pilot will make a mistake, especially if you're low time and inexperienced. Because the mistakes you make in a Cessna 172 and you're able to touch down safely, you may not have the same freedom to make those mistakes in a Piper M600. It's a less forgiving airplane, it's a more sophisticated airplane, and you don't want to be toying around with such a machine and something that expensive. So I understand the excitement and I understand wanting to get the airplane of your dream, but it is extremely important to pace yourself. Piper M600 is not the only aircraft that can go 250 knots, okay? And chances are you don't even need to go that fast if you've got less than 100 hours. You can go, again, pace yourself to something a little faster and a little faster and a little faster. And I can understand also the age difference. If you are much older and this is a long-term thing and you finally get to do it, maybe just maybe you get a pass, but still, please get the proper training. Personally, I would strongly advise against anyone trying to jump from a Cessna 172 to a Piper M600. Just don't do it. Put safety first, save your life, okay? So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I'm curious if there are any pilots out there watching me right now that you've gone through a similar process, because I don't think this is uncommon. I think there are pilots out there who are able to go at a much faster rate in jumping into a faster airplane. So if you're that pilot, I want to know what your experience has been like, and please leave your feedback and questions in the comments. Let me know what you think about this situation. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but I think safety should come first. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is Mike. If this is your first time, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and please put that notification bell on so you get notifications whenever I upload a new video. I'll catch you all on the next video. Peace.